A warm welcome again to all the panelists and the assembled delegates here as we embark on this second edition of the APAC BFSI Finnovation Conclave. And as Shobik rightly pointed out, it's unique in the sense this is a first time in a couple of years we are doing this conclave in person. The earlier edition was virtual, as we all realized during the pandemic. So as we start the panel discussion, in fact, my first question, while we know BFSI has been one sector which has embarked on their digitization journey quite a while back. However, last couple of years during the pandemic, definitely the process has accelerated. And my question to all the panelists, this round we will ask, and I would request you to maybe stick to an answer not more than a couple of minutes so that we can cover more points. My question is, how has digitization, one, improved the productivity of the bank itself, and second, how has it enhanced the customer service? So I'll start with Mr. Murty.
Thank you very much for having me here. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming early in the morning to attend this. So coming back to your question, digitization is, of course, the primary thing which started when we actually started the organizations, right? That is when the entire thing actually took birth. But as you said, in the last 2 years, things have shaped up so much that in a normal course of routine, we would have done in next 3 to 4 years, or it would have taken 5 years also. But the timelines are crunched so much that we accelerated it in a couple of months or less than a year. So many projects saw the light of the day, especially, during the pandemic. For example, let me take, some of the initiatives which we took. One of the major initiatives was the video KYC. Right, we were the first bank in India to launch right during the pandemic because the business has to go on. People were not walking into the branches. How do you get the business back into the track? You will have to find some way or the other to, get things done. So these are the things which actually took birth and innovation started happening, right? And of course, to stick to your question, how does it help? It helps big time, both for internal and external clients, from a perspective of you have to think, how much can I give the control to the end user to actually do things by themselves? They don't need to approach me or call my call center or something. You just download an app and everything should be done. For example, take our app like 811. When you download it, that's it. You do everything by yourself. You open your bank account, you start transacting, it's a one-stop shop. You do, yeah.
If I may interrupt you here for one point, I can understand during the pandemic, obviously, when physical contact was at a minimal level and it was impossible. Yep. Having said that, when now sort of video KYC was one or other digital norms have been established, but still there is a question often in a banking sector that personal touch, for a lot of financial transaction, and especially if you look at the demographics of your customer, the older people who are not that digital savvy, they still need that personal connect with the bank. So how do you tackle that issue?
To see, that will always be there. That hybrid culture will always be there. That is why we have brick and mortar branches all over across the country, right? So you can't get rid of that. As you exactly said, there is a different demographics. People at an older, age kind of thing, they actually love to go to the branch, feel the touch and feel, sit, talk to someone, they get the confidence. Yes, I have got my money, someone is talking to me and all. They are wary of talking to, a call center or a, bot or something like that. They don't like it, right? That will still definitely coexist. As we go ahead, as the millennials take over, probably we'll see the entire shift to the other side. But for next couple of years, that will still be there.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So the same question I'll put to you, Naveen, now. Basically, in terms of enhancing customer experience and optimizing productivity, how has digitization helped?
couple of things. Probably when this pandemic happened, there were three areas I think which has to be bifurcated into when we look at this entire transformation. Couple of them Mr. Murty has touched upon, where we have actually empowered the customers with the digital platforms. And second thing, I think one of the point that you touched upon, when there is a interaction between the customer and the bank staff, irrespective whether it is happening physically face to face or it's happening remotely, it was very important for us as banks to empower these people who are facing the customers with the right set of technology. I think that's another area where most of the banks have implemented a lot of initiatives around making sure that the people who are facing customer also are thoroughly empowered with sufficient data and insights so that they can have meaningful conversations with the customer. And the third thing I would want to bring to the notice is, if you look at the overall payments, the digital payments that were happening in the ecosystem, before the pandemic, somewhere in 2019, as an ecosystem, we have done about 1 billion UPI transactions. And last month, we have reached about close to 5.95 billion, which is 6 times almost what used to happen just before the pandemic. In this 2.5 years or 3 years, close to 3 years of this particular journey, I think as an ecosystem, everyone has contributed to making sure the systems are geared up to process 6 times the volumes that were happening. And secondly, also, like Murty sir also said, that what could have happened in probably 4 to 5 years has definitely happened in lesser amount of time, and necessity is the mother of invention, right? So everyone actually came across and with different ideas and made sure that people have been pushed to get across the digitization curve in a faster way.
Thank you. In fact, integration with these digital payments and digital apps, we'll take it up in a later round. Maybe that merits a little more discussion. Sourav, I'll come to you next. In terms of again, that same question, your digitization experience as far as enhancing customer experience and productivity.
Yeah, thank you, and good morning to all of you. I'd like to just maybe a healthy rivalry here with Mr. Murty. That the video KYC, I think we were the first banks to launch it, and that was on-prem, of course. So coming back to the question, that during this pandemic, actually, if you look at it, everything has got a plus and minus sides, right? So pandemic, one side is that on the tech teams, they could work from home. Now, today's scenario is a bit different because people don't want to come to office. That's a different story. With Musk giving a kind of a fatwa kind of thing that you have to come office or you leave the company, right? So, so what is happened during that phase is that people started working from home. We gave them the capability, at least in the BFSI sector, which was very kind of a closeted sector where people could not do work from home. That was kind of a no-no kind of scenario. But in case of pandemic, we gave access to most of our partners, developers, and as well as the in-house team also. So what happened is that they could get a lot of time, and we could do a lot of stuff which could have not been done otherwise. So the productivity increased. What I'm trying to say is that productivity increased during the pandemic time. But of course, like everything has got a plus and negatives thing. So now the people are getting more used to the homework and don't want to come to office. So that culture will again cyclic thing, it'll again change. People have understood like this seminars which are going on online for many months, and people got really tired of it, getting onto webinars, right? So here digitization definitely helped in moving the BFSI sector forward. We had the basic idea is to reduce the contact with the person on the other side, right? So with the digitization, we could reduce the contact, and the speed of processes increased. So that gave a very big boost and leverage to the community as well as to the economy, right? The second piece, what Mr. Rajneesh was also discussing, was for the older generation or the generation who are not tech savvy. So what happens is that so most of this, to address that, RBI has come out with a new circular in the month of April with a digital banking unit, right? So it's going to be a separate banking unit altogether, sitting along with side by side with the brick and mortar. It's again going to be brick and mortar, but the idea is to spread awareness, right? So we're going to have the first set of DBUs, 75 DBUs to be launched by 15th of August. So that's the mandate given by RBI. So we'll be having those DBUs coming up, digital banking units, where you'll have a COO, right, sitting a scale 3 officer, right? in the government parlance, it's a scale 3 officer, maybe an AGM in private sector banks, right? So, so that level officer will be sitting along with all the tools which are available, and everything will be paperless. So it's basically targeted to create awareness. And secondly is that it will help the the generations who are not tech savvy. Of course, most of them are. In fact, I'm surprised to see that older generation are more tech savvy. They keep posting questions which are even we get stumped upon, right? So those are the advantages of this, and I think it is going to be a good journey forward.
Thanks. Before I come to you, Amol, I'll come to you with a question in terms of how if I may say, the apps or the fintech players, how they are integrating with the banks and that business model. But before that, in light of what the three bankers here, what they have mentioned, while we know obviously in banks, security is paramount and the security infrastructure also is taken care of. But when we are embarking on such extensive digitization journey, and especially the customer interfacing, see earlier it has more from the core banking and the banking infrastructure side where the security was there. But as more and more the customer facing interface is getting digitized, this security as a challenge, and especially when we talk about our demographics, not all people might be equally tech savvy. So how that security you people are ensuring, especially for that customer facing part, lesser for the bank. We know bank infrastructures are more or less secure and safe, but what about the customer facing part where a lot of these illegal players are coming and there are always threats, and especially when so much extensive digitization is happening? I'll start with you again.
See, security, of course, is a paramount thing. It comes first on the top of the table when especially it comes to banks and financial institutions. There is no second thought about it, right? Regulators are also sitting on our head like, a hawk. And they put all kind of controls, whatever is required. Some way we really appreciate what they are actually doing from a governance perspective, right? Something that they're making my life miserable, but this is actually good for the ecosystem, right? When we talk of security, not only the customer facing, the internal facing, as he rightly mentioned, right, during the pandemic, we had opened up our entire infrastructure to the outside world. We don't know who's connecting, from which device they are connecting, from where they are connecting, from which coffee shop they are sitting and connecting. It was a nightmare for us, right? At the same time, you have to safeguard your entire infrastructure, your applications, your servers, your entire ecosystem you have to safeguard, right? That's where your robust security system, what you have established, comes into picture. Your NOC, SOC, and your red teams, your blue teams, all these guys come into action, right? I will not allow any of the applications or any new piece of software or infrastructure getting onto my network without thoroughly passing through my entire IT security checks. Business will come and sit on your head that, they have to go live in 2 days and all, but I wouldn't budge unless my security teams give me a go-ahead. That is the paramount first thing to happen. Under pressure, we cannot just go ahead and do something and say, okay, on a retrospective effective, we'll look into it. Nothing, not at all possible. I don't mind losing business. I don't mind being, third or fourth or 10th in the market, but when I launch, I would launch a very robust offering to my clients. And it's all about trust. Banks are all about trust. We don't want to lose the trust. Just because you want to launch something quickly, never ever cross the line of security. That's my advice.
Okay. Thanks. Maybe Naveen, your take on the security part?
Yeah, especially with whatever has been happening over the last 4-5 years, where fintechs and banks have come together to co-create and offer solutions, it is extremely important that these partnerships are driven in a responsible manner. I think a regulator also has clearly recognized the efforts that are being put in the ecosystem. They have given few guidances in the last couple of years. One is definitely with respect to how banks will have to follow something called as a digital payment security guidelines. This has been issued amidst the pandemic by regulator, which clearly spells out what are the checks and balances, not only from the security perspective, but also from the customer protection perspective. Because when we actually launch this, it is not just, like he said, launching and getting business is 1 day or 2 day job. But at the end of the day, as banks, we are custodians of trust. That is something which we cannot compromise with, and regulators have definitely taken note of this. They have not only issued this DPSC circular, they are also talking about how do we actually regulate some of these players who are probably making a good impact on the ecosystem. Couple of initiatives that regulators also have taken is they have brought in something called as a TPAP framework, which ensured that all the third-party apps which are providing payment services are also somehow linked with in a tripartite agreement with, say, someone like a NPCI and a bank. Similarly, last year they said we want to give something like a payment aggregator guidelines, so that whoever is actually carrying out transactions like a payment processing on behalf of various merchants or various fintech players, they are also now being brought into the hold of the complete regulations. Similarly, there is a draft guidelines which have been issued in terms of how the digital lending should happen. Just before the session, Amol was saying that probably this decade will be the decade of fintechs, but this decade of fintechs is definitely getting a lot of guidance from the regulator, and we as a banks, as long as we follow those guidance and we be responsible, I think we will have very, very good products coming into the market, and which will marry both trust and also convenience.
Exactly. So, in fact, after we hear from Sourav, we'll come to Amol on that fintech thing. Sourav, especially the DBU thing that you mentioned. So there, again, that customer interfacing security becomes paramount. How have you tackled it?
Okay. So let me give a different perspective. I mean, it's a in a simplistic term, if you look at a security, if you just think of a house, right? So if you have a house and then you're securing your perimeter, so people from every side will try to come into your house, right? So that's the basic concept, and you're trying to prevent people getting into the house. Now what happens is that you have a team who's protecting this, and the other external actors, the bad ones and the good ones, ethical hackers are also there, right? So, and then you have the bad ones in terms of there may be state actors, there may be individual actors, there may be a group of actors from different countries with various reasons, right? So they are trying to attack you at particular area, which are the weak points or the chinks in your armor, if you like to call it, right? So if you need to, the whole team is trying to protect the entire fort or a house, right? And there will be some chink somewhere. So we have to protect that. So what my colleague here also mentioned, that at times it's very difficult to keep the business at bay and launch something, right? So that is a really challenge, and people breathe down the neck of IT guys, and that's the story everywhere. So coming back to Rajneesh's point is that for the DBU perspective, so DBU is nothing but an extension of the stuff which is already existing, right? It is just an extension. So only thing is that more awareness. You have a bigger screen in that setup where the customers can come. It's a touch screen, so customers can come and punch in their details, right? So there will be no paper-based entries, right? All will be digital entries. So that's the advantage. But otherwise, there is no difference from the systems which are currently available and that will be available in the DBU. So you have the ATMs, CRMs, right? The cash recyclers machines. Then you have the kiosks, the printing, the passbook printing machine, and then you have the touch screen where you can do all kind of things from loans to opening account to KYC and all of that. So everything will be available in the DBU, which is existing in a bank, but in a complete bouquet kind of stuff with a person who will be assisting whoever visits the particular place. It will be assisted by them.
Okay. Thank you. Amol, now I'll come to you. When a lot of these fintechs and maybe the apps that they're working, so how is that collaboration happening with the banks, and what's that joint business model emerging out of that? So if you can enlighten us on that.
Thank you so much. Fellow panelists have actually opened up a lot of good insights into how digitization has been changing the face of banking and also guiding the future. I just want to put a context as well to it, which is between 2000, when I was studying, until 2020, we've seen 2 decades, and we are in 2022. The first decade was the advent of private banks. Of course, banking has not been new to India. It's been there since 1990s. But when we talk about 2000, it actually called out the large private sector banks. I'll not name the entities. Between 2010 and 2020, we saw the emergence of NBFCs. So of course, banking core function was always lending, how to lend money to meet the needs of enterprises, customers. And between 2010 and 2020, NBFCs challenged banks in terms of doing it faster, democratizing credit. And then banks and NBFCs started collaborating. And now we see after 2020, a new decade, which is till 2030, you see various fintech companies. Fintech is nothing but financial services embedded with technology. So that's fintech, and fintech have come in. So it's all about a mindset change. Between 2000 and 2010, the mindset was how can we make more people access banking services. Between 2010 and 2022, it's all about how do we lend technology to make customer journeys, to make experience faster. And fintechs, of course, pandemic has been one of the tipping points, one of the game-changing events. It's been a crisis. And in any crisis comes a big opportunity for any enterprise. And that's where fintech, they wanted to always work vertically. If you see banks work horizontally, wherein they have to expand branches, they have to put all the customer propositions, whether it be banking products, insurance, investments, DMAT to all the customers. Fintechs pick up a particular problem. It could be insurance, it could be lending, it could be wealth, and they solve a problem. They go deeper in terms of customer experience, customer journeys, business model. And that's where they have, the focus is very huge when it comes to fintech. They want to solve a problem in a very different way so that the customer experience goes up. And that's where a bigger collaboration between banks and fintechs has been happening. And today is a time of collaboration and partnerships. Of course, all of us cannot solve a customer problem alone. Hence, you need a lot of partnerships to see the strengths which various entities offer. And in this 2000 and 2022 or till 2030, there are 4 key pillars which all banking and financial services entities go through. It's the 4 C's typically. So you have a customer, you have a compliance, you have cost, and you have competition. Now the customer has been changing. All the customers, all of us sitting in the room, I can see maybe the average age in this room of around 40, 45. But all the customers, there has been a pre-COVID era and there has been a post-COVID era, wherein people have changed the way they buy. Everyone has been now comfortable in terms of buying digitally. Everyone wants on demand. You want healthcare, it has to be on demand. You want entertainment, it has to be on demand. You want groceries, it has to be on demand. So now is coming the age of on-demand banking, wherein the customer wants everything in the lap or in his hand at fingertips. Minimal journeys, within 3 clicks, everyone wants to buy a product. Now, if that's happening, banks suddenly cannot change their business models. They have a lot of regulations to follow. And fintechs have been always bettering these journeys. They have been coming out with new models. Hence, there is a huge case for fintechs and banks coming together. Banks may not be able to take a very short-term risk. Fintechs have been solving a problem for new-to-credit customers, customers who don't have a credit history, customers who are very young, who've not really been exposed to, who don't have even a bank account when they come in. So that's where this collaboration has also been democratizing credit. The space that we are in, digital lending, EarlySalary, we want to do embedded finance in any and everything, wherein a person, we need to power affordability for all kind of customer segments. So be it, an insurance product, be it a healthcare product, be it a consumer product, a e-commerce product, a travel product, we would want to power affordability in every product ecosystem. And that's where banks and fintechs like us have been giving a use case to partner. Banks may not be able to lend within 2 to 3 minutes, without doing a due diligence. Also, the cost of lending to smaller customer segments, wherein smaller customer segments may require 30, 40,000 rupees. And actually, that's the real India. That's the real Bharat we are talking about, wherein people require short-term credits. People want overdrafts. fintech companies may be able to solve that problem faster in a completely paperless way. And that's where banks and fintech companies have a huge case for collaboration. Of course, it has to be a responsible behavior because it's very easy to do any financial transaction, but not at the cost of compliance. So compliance has to be of paramount importance. And also, see, between the 4 C's, customer, cost, and competition, that gets answered. But what about competition? Today, everyone is competitive because the customer has been evolving. Today's customer requires everything, at a click of a button. So if it doesn't come to any particular bank as a strength to cater to a particular customer segment or to have a product, there is no harm in collaborating with a player which is a fintech company and get that best of the product, best of the customer experience actually there given to the customer. So that's the case about collaboration between fintechs and banks.
Thanks, Amol. I'll put this question now to the banks. Again, I'll start, maybe let's start in the reverse order. From Naveen, if we start. We are seeing a lot of collaboration, as Amol has rightly pointed out, between banks and many of these fintech apps. Then in the digital banking, a lot of the UPI payments where it's linked to the bank. So a lot of the retail banking services, especially on the retail banking services, there is now increasing business collaboration with these fintechs. So what are the challenges because of this increasingly new business model, and probably the pandemic has accelerated that also. So what are the challenges in that model and how are banks looking at it?
Yeah, rightly you pointed out that there is a lot of progress in terms of fintech front-ending the customer needs on the retail space, and I think it's only a matter of time that other spaces like SME also will follow the suit. That's also because most of the fintechs are investing in solving a problem of a segment. Like if there is a SME which is only looking into, say, agriculture as a segment, they are actually understanding the entire needs of the agriculture as a industry or a segment of business, and then they are actually creating tech platforms or tech interfaces to make sure that they are there. And banks are only making sure that the financial services are seamlessly embedded into it. Now the challenge is a couple of things. One, whoever are coming into this particular fold of partnerships, they will have to have one respect towards compliance. Again, at the cost of repetition, I am telling you this particular piece because we have seen in our discussions with various fintech partners that there are certain fintechs who are wanting to do business in a responsible fashion, but some people want to see if there is something that they can do ahead of time in a pursuit to make sure that they give something new to the customer. This balance between innovation and what is actually responsible innovation is something which, as a banks, we have a very, very critical role to hold on to those innovations which may tread on a very thin borderline. That is one challenge which definitely banks will have to take care of, and even fintechs will also have to cooperate. And second thing, because some of these new interfaces, I mean, while the instruction coming to the bank is sufficiently secured, because like Murty and other panelists also mentioned that most of our IT teams are geared up to make sure that the transactions coming to the data center of the bank are sufficiently monitored and made sure that no transaction comes to us without proper authorization. But what happens on the customer interface also is equally important, and that is where I think this new guidelines on digital payment security, which also covers the customer interfaces, which involves some kind of responsibility transfer to the fintechs also has played a very good role in terms of making sure that the interfaces also are sufficiently covered.
Okay. Thanks. Sourav, you.
Okay, so when fintechs came in first, just go a little back in the history. So when fintech came in, right, so banks were a bit suspicious, right? And they were kind of Naveen was also trying to mention in a subtle way that they were not fully responsible in certain ways, right? So, so that went for some time, and then banks saw that fintechs would be able to help them in spaces they could not foray before, right? So that led into a kind of a partnership model. But again, that is what is, again, responsible banking versus, it has been mentioned again, that banks represent trust, right? So that is something that cannot be compromised with. So given the fact that fintechs would be there and new innovations will be coming in, and India is kind of a innovative, fertile land. So we will be seeing a lot of innovations in the fintech space, and banks would be also supporting the fintech growth. That's what my take would be, right?
Okay. Thank you, Murty.
See, I see fintechs as, advanced IT companies also doing financial business, right? They want to be in that space. And all credits to them, they have actually gone ahead and tapped the untapped markets, with the technology kind of reach they had. All kudos to them. They have changed the landscape. We have to accept that, they have done a great thing for the country as a whole, as the ecosystem as a whole, globally as well, right? And it's there on your fingertips. And today, if we have wallets at a Panwala and all, we should give the credit to them. They are the ones who have actually gone ahead, thought about it. Having said that, as Sourav rightly mentioned, when they launched, there was a little bit of uncertainty. What is happening? Will the share of the larger ecosystem of the banking system will go away or something like that? But as it went ahead, we all saw, as again he rightly mentioned, we all saw that it is all about a partnership. You will have to, partner with them. Those fintechs also need a big brother. Banks are the legacy big brothers who you look up to. They need a partnership. They need a hand in hand to go. While the banks use their technology, because they have everything set, and the kind of reach they have, you have to use their vehicle and improve your business. It is a hand in hand which all the banks and fintechs have to look into and go in, go ahead. That's how I look at it. And from our perspective, we have been partnering with a lot of fintechs. That's the way I think all the banks and financial institutions have to look at. Don't look at them as a competition, or they will not be able to eat your pie, and you will not be able to really get onto the kind of technology reach they have, because we are into a different businesses altogether. Our end goal is different, their end goal is different. We'll have to make the best of both the worlds meet.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah. Sure, please.
So I just wanted to add one point, and I think there's a difference between digitization and digital transformation. And, mostly these terms are actually used interchangeably, but these are not the same terms. So when you digitize, to have a website or an app, is actually you're digitizing your business. But digital transformation is how do you embed technology in the culture of the enterprise, which also has a big business model. And we all heard about Holy Trinity, the Trinity God, right? Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. And if you talk about Brahma, who's the creator? So creator is nothing but the business models. We're talking about business models, which from where business gets germinated, it gets formed. Then you have the preserver. Preserver is nothing but a customer experience. If you don't offer a great customer experience, howsoever you might have a great business model, you'll not be able to preserve it. And then you have the holy god Mahesh, which is the destroyer. And that is actually the culture, if you don't change as per the changing fabric of the customer or the economy or the crisis like, we had in COVID, then you perish, you destruct. So while banks and fintechs, these are two entities because of regulatory aspects, but you actually see they're performing the same function. Today, banks are also like fintechs. Bank, if they're very technology driven, if they're focused on giving an amazing customer experience across this holy trinity that I spoke about, they're actually fintechs. So this word is now being used interchangeably. So how can you be a bank which is actually a true fintech is the most important into the hour when you can create a great customer experience. And customer experience is like you want abhi ke abhi. You want on demand, as I was saying a few minutes back. At the midnight, can you interact with your bank and can you be empowered to shop something? Can you get 1 lakh of rupees at 3 o'clock in the morning because you are at a particular hospital? So various customer needs which are today there around the clock, around the age brackets of consumers that we have in the country today. And mind you, India is the youngest economy in the globe. The customer that we have today, which is at the bulge, is the youngest customer, which is the millennial population of India. And they have very different needs. You know, they basically, may wake up late. They may have a lot of, different needs. They don't want to own. They want to share. So hence, the entire business of financial services has to be completely digitized, has to be completely curated as per the needs of this young population which is coming in. And that's where you see a huge case of even the banks becoming fintechs. And again, if you don't have a particular technology, why to wait for that particular moment to make it happen? That's where a collaboration and a partnership comes. So, you can be the creator, you can be the preserver, and you can actually stop the destruction by either converting yourself as a fintech, a bank being a fintech, or maybe partner with any of the fintech companies. So that's another perspective which I thought is a great case for collaboration.
Excellent. That Holy Trinity analogy has been very well put, I would say. Okay, I'll come to another part of it. We touched upon initially on the customer experience part. What happens in banks is today that traditional old days physically going to branches, that's definitely over. Now, we have an omni-channel mode of delivery. The customer can reach the banks physically, digitally, through social media, chatbots, and whatnot. So this omni-channel delivery model, that brings also a challenge in terms of, it's not just the technology in terms of the security, but other aspects. Say, a lot of times people get frustrated, the bots may be very particular because bots typically work with certain FAQs, but I have a specific issue which bots are not able to solve. So these are things in an omni-channel delivery model. These are the challenges. So one, how are banks looking at it? And I'd add another part to this question. How effectively you are leveraging analytics and AI to do more predictive outcomes as far as customers are concerned. Murty, I'll start with you.
I think it's an interesting, thing. The number of channels which you mentioned, I think they have been there from quite some time, right? They only keep increasing, right? Number of channels where you provide. One is mobile banking, the phone banking. These are all there, but what has got added to it is the AI ML part of it. Now, for example, when you call our call center, you actually don't press 1, 2, 3, 4. You actually talk to the bot like you talk to Alexa or a Google Home, and you say what you want, etc. Right? And it starts conversing with you. What happens is this particular bot which is there, which is talking to you, starts learning, why you have called. When you call twice, thrice, it starts recognizing, my bot starts recognizing. Last time you called for a credit card issue, is that what you want to, transact or, talk to me for? Or you let me know what you want. Then, it actually predicts, right? That's the, novelty and innovative. I feel good. Yeah, this bot remembers what I have called. And that's not a human doing it. Now, all said and done, there will be, as you rightly said, there will be something which the bot will not be able to do. And this guy really wants to, go back to touch and feel or, hear a human voice. That will definitely be there, And finally says, no, I don't want to talk to you. Put me to a customer agent. Then this bot says, okay, fine, I'll put you to the human. They go back to the human and they start conversing, in Hindi, English, Telugu, whatever language they want. That's the kind of, they feel good. Okay, finally I'm talking to someone. But you keep providing channels, right? There are some, millennials. They don't have the patience, right? They want everything on the phone right now. In few seconds. And if it is not working, they have no loyalty. They'll just switch over. And my biggest learners, always are my own kids. I get up in the morning and they tell me, this app is not, this functionality is bakwas. This doesn't work. Even they keep commenting on my own app. They keep giving the feedback. You have to keep hearing because they are the ones who will drive the next generation. They are the ones who are looking into what is there in the market. You have to continuously keep listening to him. Don't ignore them. I get a lot of ideas from them. So they tell you what exactly you want. You have to keep servicing those, kind of generation and clients, and I think that's the future for us. But having said that, these channels will be there, challenges will be there, but you will have to still go ahead and do it.
Exactly. Yes, Sourav, both on this omni-channel as well as on the analytics part of.
All right. So omni-channel, I think, has been covered. So from an omni-channel perspective, you have the various channels which has been there for some time now. And the experience is getting better and better on all the channels. So going forward, now with this digital banking initiative also, you're seeing another channel coming up with the same kind of experience that a person would have, a customer would have. Now coming to the AI piece, so AI has been there since more than 70 years now. Right. So only thing, because of the compute power that has increased phenomenally over the period of time, so you're getting these features on your devices, on the servers, which are now capable of processing huge amount of workloads. So that is the benefit from the AI piece. So AI, we can see the transactional data with the bank usually doesn't have in that context, the huge context of data which is required from providing a next best action or a next best option. So those are the things which a AI model would provide to a customer for the increasing in the marketing piece or the marketing area that the bank would want to indulge in. But going in this direction, engaging with a fintech will give you a huge amount of data in terms of the basket data, in terms of the skewed data, which will be enabling the banks to get into the next level of marketing. So that is something that we have to really look into and delve how we can leverage that. Bank has got a considerable amount of data, definitely yes, and you can use a lot of analytics on top of that. I would not call it analytics, it's a kind of misused word or a site, so I'll call it data insights. So you get a lot of data insights from those activities, and you can do a lot of things with that, which are just scraping the top. We are not even there yet. So going forward, we'll have a lot of these coming ahead in our future course of the business.
Meaningful insights, may I say. Yes, Naveen.
So when we talk about this analytics, insights, and customers, so if you just go back to our old days, if you walk into a branch, most of the time branch manager probably knows that something is happening in your life, and they actually start the conversation with a context in their mind. When we are actually trying to put this analytics framework and all, I think it is very, very important for us to make sure that how will the system be given this particular context. In the example which Amol was mentioning, maybe if there is a call at 3 o'clock in the morning, it could be for two reasons. One is someone is actually booked a flight in the evening. That's the previous transaction which the system will have to refer to, whether the last credit card transaction was at an airport or was at a hospital. Based on that, probably the complete conversation itself is changing, right? So the giving context, or how do we actually continuously listen to various sets of information that is available within our ecosystem or outside our ecosystem with the consent. Of course, when we are talking about this context setting, it is also important to get sufficient consents from the customer so that the data privacy or any other aspects are not compromised. So when we talk about context and when we talk about analytics, context and consent will become very, very important for us to make sure that we do service in a very, very responsible fashion again.
Thanks. So contextual insights and consent, two very important points that you mentioned. Yes, Amol, your point of view, I'd just like to add on that. You heard about the omnichannel delivery. How, as a fintech, you can help banks in perhaps improving that omni-channel customer delivery model and that experience for them?
So data is the new dollar for everyone today. And so banks basically have customer database, and fintechs can produce a lot of insights. I'll just talk about the way fintechs operate. So today, when you complete a customer journey and when you onboard a customer, you look at the picture of a customer. Today, there's enough data which is available to look at pictures in a different way. Like some people here are wearing specs, some people aren't. So, and everyone has a tendency to change your spectacles after a year, right? It might get broken, it might get warned of, and so on. So it creates a huge case, for example, to partner with a merchant like a Lenskart, wherein actually you can give curated offers to a customer right from the time that he got onboarded with you, and nudge him regularly that, hey, maybe you might require a glass change. And there is this particular offer into easy installments, into a good financing proposition, and can be given. You capture age and organization and designation of various customers that you onboard. Now, if a customer today is working in a technology setup, and all of us know about technology coming in a big way, a great resignation happening in the industry, and technology people aren't very available in any organization today. I know the age. I know that it would be an appraisal time. I know the person is having a XYZ designation. Why don't I create offers to that particular person, just before his appraisal becomes due, so that he can actually get a new skill and can upgrade his role within the organization, or look at, let's say, another job. So upskilling, educational courses for upskilling, or EdTech becomes a huge use case for this. I know that today it's January, February time. It's insurance buying time. When people, they submit for their investment proofs. And again, you can curate various offers or nudge people to buy insurance. So there is enough of good life stage which is available with a particular fintech company. There is a lot of data on the age. There is a lot of data on the buying preference. If one would have bought an iPhone 11, and of course today, no one holds a phone for more than 18 months or 2 years. Most of the people change. As soon as a new gadget gets launched, why don't we, give an offer for upgrade? So enough data which is available. And if, let's say, there is a bank or there is an entity which is not really able to create this customer experience for its customers to, every customer is aspirational. Customer wants to upgrade himself to everything new today. And as a bank, if you're not able to do that fast, your customer may end up going to another competition bank. And this, if the bank doesn't have an internal capability, actually can be curated through fintech platforms, which can help partner with the bank to create that aspirational journey, aspirational offers for every customer. So that's where, again, a bank and a fintech can really partner in a big way to create a happy customer and a retained customer.
Thanks. Thanks. Anyone from the audience has any question for any of the panelists? Okay, so then we'll just conclude, and 1 minute for each panelist. I'll start with you, Murty. If we look for the ahead, a little bit of crystal ball gazing for the next 18 to 24 months, which will be the top priority on your digitization agenda, one activity that will be on the priority?
So there are quite a few activities which are going parallelly, so it is difficult to pinpoint. But for me, the top priority will be do-it-yourself journeys which we are looking at. We don't want any intervention from our end where the client has to depend on us to become a client or transact with us. Everything has to be done by the end user, by themselves, right from KYC to opening to the account to transacting. Everything should happen seamlessly. I will be happy if they don't, come to me for anything, and they even don't talk to the relationship manager, but while we will go and talk to them. But that's how the seamless banking should happen, and that is the biggest priority for us.
Thanks, Sourav.
Yeah, to us, what I'll echo what Murty had said. But to do that, we need to strengthen the entire journey from end to end, right? So the priority for us would be to strengthen our, streamline our the entire journey. And one of the core pieces is the core banking system. The core banking system is a different animal altogether in this new age, still running the old monolithic kind of stuff. And we need to see how we can take it forward to the next level.
Yes.
So, if I have to just summarize the situation at which we are in, given that customer is getting very much involved, one way we are actually looking at customer needs with a microscope. That is one eye which is focusing on. And second thing is, we know things are changing fast, so the second eye is actually wearing a telescope and looking at what is going to come. So at an area where we are actually looking at with one eye on microscope and second eye on telescope, it's very, very difficult to see what is going to happen. But like people said, it's very important for us as a financial institutions, whether it is banks or fintechs, to move away from products and services and talk about solutions and customers and segments of businesses, so that we actually make sense to the people whom we are talking to, and they also see a value in what they are getting from these entities.
Thanks. Amol.
So I think tomorrow's, with so many people chasing, so many merchants, banks, fintech players, chasing the customers, and in the age of distraction, wherein you can't, interact with so many people, I think the core important perspective would be that if you want to serve your customer, you need to have the best of insights about your customer. What does he like? What's happening in his life stage? Is he getting into a new job? Is he becoming a parent? Is he having more responsibilities coming in? Is he going for the retirement? And track his life stage. And carefully embed your finance in anything and everything that he buys. Because that's the only way you can be his core. Otherwise, as my fellow panelists were saying, that there aren't any loyalties today. You can keep on switching in and out of any platform, and you will not be stuck with one. So knowing your customer is very important, and offering him affordability across platforms is very important, whether on e-commerce, whether on travel, whether on various banking transactions. How can you be a part of his life with those insights, and how can you embed your finance in anything and everything that he buys? So that's the most important thing, which I think would rule the BFSI space in the longest run.
Thanks, Amol. With that, we'll conclude this first panel discussion. And before we disperse, I would like to recognize all of them have been technology leaders in the financial space, and in a recognition of their efforts with our Financial Leadership Awards. And for that, may I request Sanghamitra Mohanty, our co-founder of APAC News Network, to hand over the Leadership Awards. So, Mr. KRC Murty, Sourav Dutta. Okay.